Welcome, Lenora Billings Harris, a diversity strategist with a specialization in unconscious bias. And most importantly, you are a founder and a leader for Black NSA. And I just want to have a conversation with you that I think would benefit the entire Black NSA community. First of all, how did you, because you were one of the first ones, the leaders, how did you first engage Black NSA, put it on your radar, and just put the time and energy that you've done all these years? How did you come to that point?
Well, thank you, first of all, inviting me to share this time with you, Marquez. I'm really humbled and honored. And Black NSA did start before me. That is to say, I was not one of the founders of Black NSA, but I was able to get involved very quickly. And I joined the National Speakers Association in 1988. So in 1988, there were not very many of us. And I saw three people: John Alston, Keith Harrell, and Thelma Wells. Thelma was one of the founders of Black NSA. And the way it started is she and others would just see Black folks in the hall and say, Monday night, the free night, we're gonna have a meeting. So the very first meeting I ever went to, I think that we had about 12 people. But then each year it grew and grew. And my reason for being there is because I knew, well, first of all, those of you who are watching this and know me, my core is Ubuntu. And Ubuntu is a Zulu proverb that means I am because you are. You are because I am. And so for me, Black NSA was a way to make that proverb come alive.
Now, Lenora, although you weren't the first African American board member, you were the first African American NSA president. I want to know, what were the challenges? And I'll ask you a follow-up question with that, but what were the challenges of taking on such responsibility?
Well, Willie Jolly and I went on the board at the same time. He was elected to the board that year, and back then it was an open election where members voted for the various people they wanted to go on the board. And I was appointed by Terry Paulson, who was the incoming president. And each NSA president can appoint one person in addition to the other people who were elected that come on. And so that's how I got on the board to begin with. And so then after several people had encouraged me to seriously think about becoming president, you actually run for the position of vice president and the board elects you. So so that you understand some of the logistics. And I knew that when I won the election to become the vice president of NSA, that meant when I ascended to the presidency, I would be a first. Now, quite honestly, I've been a first a lot. Because I'm old, I've been a first a lot. First, either the first woman or the first Black person or the first of both. But this was a big deal. At least to those of us who understand those things. And I realized that I would be a trailblazer. And so the challenge was the responsibility that I felt that I absolutely had to do extraordinarily well. Because I know that some people would be looking at me in such a way to be measuring everything. Is she saying the right things, doing the right things? Not only people from the dominant culture, but also people of color, period, not just African Americans. And so I so wanted to do well. So that was my challenge. At the same time that I was feeling what an honor and a privilege to be in the seat, to be a trailblazer for the National Speakers Association. So that was top of mind all the time for me.
Well, I have to tell you, I was there that year. I've been a member for 11 years, and you made us so proud, Lenora. You really did. What were some opportunities that came out of you filling that role as our first national African American president?
Well, from the perspective of being the first African American, the opportunity that I saw was the opportunity to help other people realize that it was possible. Now, I'm smart enough to know that NSA board members did not vote me to become ultimately the president because I was black. You know, that they're smarter than that they would not have done that. So I knew that they, the board, already had faith in me that I would be able to do the job well. And so I saw an opportunity to move forward the idea of diversity and inclusion without having people see me as diversity police. Because diversity and inclusion happens to be my focus anyway, I knew that some people were going to see me that way. And so I really worked at that balance, and what that ultimately looked like, what the outcome was to sprinkle names of people who are people of color, who might not have gotten exposure in the past, to help folks when they were in decision-making positions, like convention chair and the many committees that have to be appointed by the vice president or president-elect. I whenever I could sprinkle names of folks that I knew that were members of NSA who I thought were, that needed visibility, that were ready to do it. I frequently turned down opportunities to do things that would give me visibility. This is even before I was president, that would give me visibility within NSA because people already knew my area of expertise. I mean, it was pretty well branded, but I would point to other people or, you know, other leadership positions. And like, you know, not that I didn't want to do it, but, you know, there are many of us, and that's part of Ubuntu and part of the Cavett spirit of making the pie bigger. So I saw an opportunity, and what I'm proud of this many years later is that you do see diversity. Maybe still not as much as we want, but people are thinking about it. It is another one of the measures they make, particularly within the meetings, within the publications that go out, and who's on the main platform and that type of thing. And once again, they're not picking people just because they are African American. You have to be good, but they are now recognizing there's something missing because they're realizing they're not reflecting the membership when they don't have diversity.
Now, many of us within the Black NSA community, either we've held leadership roles, we'd like to hold leadership roles. First part of my question is, what sustained you when you were a leader? How did you utilize Black NSA, if not at all? And then what advice would you give to us out there that would also like to have similar success?
Black NSA excites me in so many ways. To specifically answer the question of what I did to sustain myself during not only the year as president, but the years leading up to it. So it's vice president, president-elect, president, and then immediate past president. And all of those positions have very significant responsibilities. And there were times, and those of you who were around during that time, there were times when you would invite me to speak to the Black NSA gathering, everyone there, you knew that there were times that but for you, but for the love that I always felt from the members of Black NSA, but for you, there were times when I said to myself, why do I need to put up with this? You know, every organization has politics, every organization, and I was well aware of that. And there were times I'm saying, why am I doing this? You know, I'm volunteering, and I know that I'm a really good leader, and I don't necessarily need to put up with some of the things that might come up. But then I think of Black NSA, and I would think of, if I were to have stepped away, how much longer it would take for that door to open again, for the opportunity for the next person, and for it to not have to be trailblazing, for it to be normal. And so Black NSA sustained me in more ways than you would ever imagine. And I must tell you, I forgot the second part of the question.
So and other than you just gave us some great advice, just listening to what you did, but what advice would you give to those of us that are interested in leadership positions,
Yes.
taking it to the next level? Yes. What should we do?
Yes. So a couple things. Being a part of Black NSA is a great first step or second step, however it came about, because NSA no longer sees it as that group that we don't quite understand what it is. We are the only, Black NSA is the only community group that actually has a structured, to me it's almost like going to a mini convention. when you go to the Black NSA meeting. However, you've expanded that, through Facebook and all the other ways that people can stay connected, the interviews that you have every month. And so what I would say to you is step up to leadership positions within NSA, because that counts as leadership. And get involved with your chapters. So in the broader question of if you're thinking of wanting to become a leader within NSA, get involved with your chapters. Chapters are struggling for people who want to volunteer. So don't wait for somebody to ask you. Go to the president-elect, whomever it is, and say, what can I do? And don't worry about how small or big the task is that they ask you to do. If it's welcoming people at the door at your chapter meetings, do it, because that's how you get noticed. And then just keep volunteering, keep trying to find ways that you can utilize your skills and be involved with NSA. At the national level, one of the things that you can do is find the time to reach out to people who are on the board. Get to know them by allowing them to know you. Now, why would you do that? Because when you're coming and you're showing up and you have a serious conversation with them, to just reach out to somebody and say, my name is Lenora and I know you're on the board and I'm just wondering, can I talk to you for 10 minutes? They get to know you one-on-one when they're not meeting 100 people or 1,000 people. So get to know folks. Now, don't run down a list of there's 20 people or however many it is and I better go meet all of them. And we know how to network the right way. So reach out to them and get to know them, because they are always looking for people for various committees and various task force. And our directory talks about what we do in the area of our expertise. It doesn't talk about other things that we have strengths in. Like, my strength happened to be working with boards and being on other boards. And I realized that really was what I was able to give back to NSA, that leadership ability that I had learned from other boards. They won't know that about you. So develop those relationships and stay connected. And you don't have to get to know all of them, but get to know a few of them so that you can better understand when are the opportunities being appointed. Usually people wait too late. They see somebody that now they're president and then they say, oh, I'd like to be on your team. And most of the leadership positions on those teams are filled already. So the point is do as many things as you can within NSA so that by the time they're thinking of you, you already have evidence that you have done very well at your chapter level and in other ways that you volunteered. And absolutely, you must do it from the spirit of Cabot. You must do it from a place of servant leadership. If there's any inkling that the only reason you're doing it is because you want to be on the main stage, that's about the best way to never get on the main stage.
Thank you so much, Lenora Billings Harris. We love you, we appreciate you, and thank you, and never change.
My pleasure. My pleasure.